Hello, good morning, everybody. I wish all of you are safe and healthy with your beloved ones. Please stay safe at home and take care of yourself. This is Dr. Mustafa Muhammad, your lecturer for the first 4 weeks of this interesting module. I wish you reviewed week 1 material, lecture 1 and 2, and you engaged successfully with the seminar material and your seminar leaders. This week we have another interesting topic which includes 2 lectures actually. So we are going to talk about the evolution of e-commerce from the start until the far future. So we will have a sort of historical chronological reflection as well as foresight, and we will see the future of this idea of digital business and e-commerce. So lecture 3 has this agenda, 2 elements. First, we are going to talk about a sort of historical evolution of the internet, the World Wide Web itself, and then we are going to cover the e-commerce origin and the advancements in e-commerce. The second element, I'm going to talk to you about my own experience doing live projects, consultancy projects in terms of e-commerce applications. These are successful projects that will inspire you further. And then we will move later on to lecture 4. Okay, so the first element, which is a sort of historical insight of e-commerce, if you go to the core book, chapter 2, you have this interesting diagram in page 100 that tells you about the stages of development in the internet, the World Wide Web. And if you read further, you will see that the origin started with sort of language, communication language, where we had these hardwares, these devices called the packet switching hardware that helps different type of data to be transformed between 2 destinations, senders and receivers. So this started from early 60s until mid 70s. And in that era of time, the communication protocol is a language that helps the packet switching hardware to compromise and classify different data into meaningful messages. The idea behind this software and hardware, this communication language, was supposed to help campuses to communicate together. So campuses could be universities, campuses could be branches of big governmental or mainly military institutions, how they can get together through mainframe computers. So later on, from mid-70s until mid-90s, the internet faced a sort of commonly accepted behavior among governmental and public institutions, and the US Army, the Department of Defense, made it or scaled it wide and scaled it up, so contributed financially in the investment of the so-called internet or World Wide Web around $1 million American to make it a sort of advanced research agency network that connects between different military agencies, as well as make it regulated, and the institutional, the American institution later on approved it as a sort of communication way. So it's not just the documentation and the paper way of communicating things, but then they created more sort of advanced things. And in this era of time, once this communication strategy started to be accepted by private corporations as well, we started this element of commercialization and having these telecommunication platforms to do financial transaction and deliver creative business models. And this is why this led to the booms and dot-coms, the origin of eBay and Amazon and other companies. And we call this era of time from mid-90s until now commercialization, because since this time we have lots of waves sharing economy, and then industry 4.0, and we're going to talk about it in lecture 4, artificial intelligence, lots of other waves that have been incorporated to commercialize products and services and deliver e-commerce outputs to wider audience. So the commercialization stage reflects all of this. Then I'm going to take you further to the evolution of e-commerce, which started by pioneers, especially Baxter healthcare system as a sort of modem-based system that enabled people to pay for any document they want to get. They pay for prescription, then they get the treatment in the chemist. So this is not new, this is old. It started in this era, this decade between 80s and 90s, and this led to a sort of standardized technical term called electronic data interchange, where you can exchange documents online, and these documents will have financial value, financial information, and you can send this to a bank, and then the bank will send it to your partner out there to exchange commodities. So let's assume you are paying, you want to pay for commodities, you want to import stuff from China, so you can send a sort of electronic data interchange, or in this case we call it bank warrant, or a letter of guarantee, and then the supplier will send you the commodities and the products that you need based on this electronic data interchange, or the letter of guarantee in the bank. French Mintel was a very successful telecommunication company that been initiated at that time to have a sort of wider delivery of commercially based internet communication. I do advise all of you to keep reading about these elements much further from the core books, core references that I listed in this slide or in these lectures. So the evolution of e-commerce, as we observe it, invention, this was the pioneering stage, where we started to have retails online from Alibaba until other experiments and other business things. So these three stages reflect the sort of overall progression of e-commerce and its applications. In the early stages, when we had the retail trying to convey their marketing messages through on websites and sort of static website, we call them brick and mortar, and you will study this further with Dr. Alia in the second part of this module. At that time, it was quite risky to invest on such .coms, and then there was a tendency towards the so-called .coms crash. And in a few seconds, I will play a video that talks to you about this boom and the crash, which was surrounding the accident and this disaster of 11th of September. It was the so-called 9/11. At that time, people and investors worldwide were hesitant to invest on anything that is vulnerable to be hacked, stolen, and any accident around the American economy. Later on, the consolidation era, where we had not just delivery of products, but also delivery of services, and this led to a sort of another wave of increment, where investors worldwide been investing, and customers started to trust the e-commerce application of the World Wide Web. And later on, around 2007, 2006, we had this boom in smartphones, and the smartphone at the moment became a sort of gateway towards TV, towards emails, towards different digital business applications. So it became a sort of toy in everybody's hand, where we can explore new products and services delivered by these providers. And then we had this mobile commerce, boom, another shift. We then, at that time, started to have Facebook and social media applications, and I'm going to talk about these booms and cloud computing and later on more analytics, marketing analytics and web analytics. All these waves led to a reinvention of not just the infrastructure, not just the hardware and software, but also the business models associated with the so-called e-commerce. So, in the invention era, from the mid-90s until 2000, the retailers were quite concerned about the capacity of websites. It's called bandwidth. Which media are they going to incorporate? Pictures, videos. It was quite challenging to upload interactive material. So at that time there was no, Web 2 or the interactive version of the web. It was more static, one way, brick and mortar, as I mentioned before. It was more friction-free commerce, where they target a specific or narrow market niche. The first mover advantage was always there because it was a new move in the world. If you go and find Bait.com, for example, in Gulf countries, this was quite new. Souk or Market.com in Gulf and in Emirates and similar countries, this was new. Alibaba in China was quite new. So all these first movers were remarkably entrepreneurial moves for e-commerce. But then suddenly around 2000 we had this .com crash, which I'm gonna explain in a few seconds in this video. So the main concern around this early stage of inventing the internet was mainly what type of users, how many users we would have. Do we have a capacity in this in both the intranet element of the internet and in the server, how we can save data? At that time there was no cloud computing, so would you keep your data in a sort of local server? How you process this data, how you protect such data, how you classify customers, what sort of storage you require. It depends on are you uploading and downloading video, music, audio stuff, or just the visuals, or just data, a sort of text. At that time as well, the way customers would interact would be different. Which currency would they use? PayPal was arising at that time. A good example of this phenomena, if you check what happened last year in Christmas time, where Joe Lewis offered their Christmas sale, they had this problem which is crashing the website because they stuck with a sort of maximum capacity. So they have a specific server, they have enterprise resource planning system, which has maintenance cost. They pay almost £1 million for this software to be installed in their intranets. So as they get more users, the website is not cloud-based, and then it drops down. And it gives you, unfortunately, the services is error, internal server error, and you cannot continue with your transaction. So let's watch this video and see what happened with this boom.
When the ball drops on the year 2000, it will be a momentous event for the world and for the U.S. economy, which is closing in on its longest expansion ever. In the late 90s, the dot-com bubble started to grow as the internet became a part of people's daily lives.
No technology in history has ever spread so far, so fast, to so many people. This is the story of the bubble that people thought would change the rules of economics until it burst, bankrupting most and making billionaires of a select few. As the internet grew, new companies started to emerge within it, mostly online retailers like Pets.com and Amazon. Not all of these companies focused on sound business models, but it didn't matter to investors. They were sucked into the internet excitement and figured that at least one business had to succeed. So they placed their bets and waited.
With the frenzy we've had, to me it feels much more like gambling.
Competition and speculation pushed investors to pay significantly more for dot-com stocks than their fundamental value, which sent IPOs soaring. Mark Cuban's Broadcast.com stock rose from $18 to over $62 during its IPO. Amazon, originally offered at $18 and closed at over $100. Companies like eBay, GeoCities, and Pets.com saw the same unprecedented growth. Overall, the NASDAQ grew from 1,000 points in 1995 to over 5,000 points in 2000, with little inflation. But the difference between perceived value and actual value created a market bubble. And bubbles can only get so big before they pop.
The NASDAQ, once again, do not stare into this index. It is white hot.
On March 10th, 2000, the NASDAQ was worth $6.71 trillion. But the next day, everything changed. The dot-com bubble burst and the market went into a free fall. In less than a month, nearly $1 trillion of stock value deflated. By October 2002, the NASDAQ had lost 78% of its value. Companies whose physical assets couldn't keep up with their once soaring stock prices, like Pets.com, lost millions of dollars and went out of business.
The internet has been pulling us along, and the thing we can take credit for is trying to keep up with it.
A few weeks before the bubble popped, Amazon raised over $600 million. This helped them outlast the economic downturn. With Jeff Bezos' leadership and their rainy day fund, Amazon rose from the rubble to become a global power. Some people fared even better. In 1999, Yahoo acquired Broadcast.com.
We just saw this as a unique opportunity to combine forces with a leading brand on the internet, and that's an opportunity you just don't pass up.
Mark Cuban gained $1.7 billion in Yahoo stock. He immediately liquidated it, predicting that the dot-com bubble was about to burst. Today, the dot-com market is steady, but many other markets are emerging. Have investors learned their lesson, or do you think there will be another bubble? Let us know in the comments below, and please like and subscribe.
Okay, as you can see from this video, which is quite interesting, I mean, we do have another bubble during the lockdown. Everything is based on digital interface. Logistics, supply chain, shipping, everything now through the .coms. You can see Amazon owner has tripled his fortune based on our needs for such .coms and Amazon world, this virtual platform that absorbed all of our life in terms of education, in terms of doing other types of business, importing, exporting. They even have their own Z shops where you can start your own startup, small shop in Amazon, and you pay listing fees and you can compete with Amazon itself. So we do have another bubble which answers this last question in the video. Okay, so the consolidation, which is the second period of time after the burst and then the fall down of this booms market, we found more business-driven approaches trying to innovate something new to overcome the challenges and the mistrust in e-commerce from investors. Large firms like Yahoo and Monster, they do a sort of merger together to expand, to exchange their market segments, so they have a wider base of market of customers. This is what I meant. Startup financing started to shrink, and these big booms, big coms started to dominate with lots of I wouldn't say just differentiated types of products, and later on next week we will talk about business strategies, and one of them is called differentiation. It feels like if you have chocolate, and you can create strawberry chocolate, vanilla chocolate. So you have the core pipelines of things, but then you differentiate products. So these corporations started to have more complex products and wide set of services, not just after sales service, but different types of social services and services like education, consultancy, mentoring, other packages that been delivered and developed in that period of time between 2001 and 2006. Growth of search engine advertising, where it gets to your history and cookies, and it saves your choices and then keeps sending you relevant commercials, and sometimes not relevant because it's not personalized. It's based on your choice. At that time, we had McAfee creating the antivirus, and how you deliver this sort of addictive software. So you allow people to have a demo-free access to a software, and then you charge them later on. The business web presence expanded into different Explorer, Internet Explorer, and then we started to have Chrome and for Mac and other devices you have other Explorers. So the latest one, which is a sort of reinvention. So during the consolidation, it was a sort of relief and overcoming challenges. The reinvention is unleashing the full power of e-commerce, which we can see now, especially during the pandemic. Rapid growth of the so-called second version of web, which is sort of interactive, something like Facebook that started this whole idea, Instagram, all these social media where people are free to share, upload, and recreate and redesign contents. Privacy, transparency about data, YouTube unboxing of products. How many young kids made fortunes by bringing buying games and unboxing these games. In fashion, things happen similar, called unboxing. So this web boom, Web 2.0 and social networking created a reinvented business model and a reinvented impact of the so-called e-commerce. Mobile platforms, and you can see what we have. If you have ASOS app, if you have Unidays app in your mobile phone, it tracks you where you go, keep telling you about nice offer for student discount. It tells you about Gymshark, nice outfits, a new release that you can go and bring. It tracks your social media, your emails, and put everything into personalized commercialization plan. Augmented reality, virtual reality, and I'm going to talk to you about these examples in lecture 4. We have this on-demand service economy, something like Uber, where, and I wish you enjoyed the seminar material last week. When it comes to Uber, this sharing economy platform enables everybody to rent a car. So you can rent a car for a few minutes, which is you rent a car, and a man and a driver would take you to a different destination. So frankly, he's sharing his car with you. Airbnb, all these on-demand service economies is quite creative and reinventing the revenue model and different types of markets and customers. I would say in marketing, which you will study in the second part of this module, you have two approaches, push and pull. Where you push things, you create new models and you keep pushing these things into the consumer's mind. You let them know that there is a new release of iPhone or Samsung, and guys, this is fantastic. It will give you these features. You push these products in shelves everywhere and make people tempted and attracted to buy this stuff. So this is the push style. The pull style is that you really address an existing social need, and you sell something that is really desired, that helps people solve their problem. So we've been through two elements here. The first element was the revolution of the internet, and then the revolution of e-commerce itself, which is the transactional applications of the World Wide Web. So as you can see, this sort of evolution in computer technology had its own impact on economy and society. And if you think, for example, how this led to business application, if you start from 50s until mid 70s, the mainframe computers, this led to more transactions when it comes to payroll and accounts receivables and paying, major bills for the government, especially by businesses, not by end users. At that time, there was no end user terminal for payment. Many computers, 70s and 80s, you had sort of automating marketing, human resources and different functions, business functions, to become online and be delivered through, many computers where you have individual users can move around with these mini computers. Personal computers, things became more mobile or mobile, where you can have personalized communication with everybody. You have spreadsheets, databases that enables different types of data entry techniques and terminals, until cloud computing recently, and augmented reality and virtual reality, AI, artificial intelligence, and I'm going to talk about this soon in lecture number 4. So after we finish this first section, I'm going to take you to something quite interesting, real life projects that I've been involved in. The first one I'm going to talk about is I was involved in this project with Aramco in Saudi Arabia to develop a sort of crowd management system to see how around or an average of 6 million visitors who go to Mecca in Saudi Arabia to do a sort of pilgrimage. Pilgrims go and visit this for ritual purposes, visit this place, Mecca, which is Mecca in the Bible, and Mecca in the Quranic language. My role out there was how to create hot spaces for businesses to see where the high traffic is there, so they can, sell services and the products out there for these visitors. At the same time, people who miss the folk, so they go there in groups to visit the rituals, and every ritual has a deadline to be there, so they have to be there in a specific time. So I developed a mobile app based on visuals, so these visuals would be understood by all visitors. So if you are not aware, this average of 6 million users a year would speak around 3,000 languages. And not a surprise. How can you use English or Arabic to convey messages? I mean, most of these people don't speak neither of these, either English or Arabic. So we had to find as a team a sort of this digital business application, which in our hands was mobile tracking system, that pushes messages to users through GPS recognition system. So once you reach to this place, it tells you, okay, this is the first, this is a holy mosque, this is another ritual that you need to go to, Arafat mountain, different places you need to go on time. And in every step, it tells you what is the best way. Would you go on foot or by car? It tells you if there is any shopping area closer to you, where to find, a grocery shop, where to find a barber shop, where to find any sort of, service around you. So a GPS recognition mobile system that tracks people, anybody who stays behind, elderly people, they wouldn't miss their flight. No, the group leader can get a message that tells where this person is left. If he's an elderly person or a disabled person, he or she can get immediate help, and we can find where they are, so they don't break or breach immigration purposes as well, and the immigration permit. So we had to do a sort of logistics map to see in terms of distance between these places, and then put this on the GPS map and the digital landscape on our mobile app to manage this. And then every visual was made in a separate interface where you can do next, back. You can find much more information about this ritual, what this picture means. And to do so, we invited groups of people through the Ministry of Hajj, or the pilgrimage, the Ministry of Pilgrimage. We invited different groups from different cultures and languages until we developed commonly agreed visuals, as you see. So these visuals seem being tested from sort of visual mobile phone stuff into real bridges. So we bought these pictures, we tested them, and people seem to understand it quite clearly, and they don't panic regardless the language, so they just see the visuals. And afterward we launched this into sort of wider application. So this is an example of how digital business would help to do crowd management, how to do a free trade zone where we can locate people and heavy traffic, and we can benefit from transportation service, from grocery, from shopping services and other things. Another interesting example, and fintech is my expertise. And if you remember last week, I demonstrated an example about using cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. This time I was involved in the early M-Pesa project, and African students would I think would recognize this. People of Pakistan and India would recognize similar system. In many countries, either developed and developing countries, they all have this so-called mobile money system. So M-Pesa stands for mobile money. Pesa stands for money, actually, in Swahili language. So I've been involved in this project to develop a sort of mobile money transfer. Money sharks, these people who benefit from lending poor people, they give them money, and these people cannot afford to start their own business. They borrow the money and they have to return it back with around 200% interest rate, and this was really difficult for these people. So the project started in Kenya, and Kenya now is sort of emerging economy, very successful. At that time was almost 9 to 10% of the Kenyan economy had bank account. So only 9 to 10%, so we are talking about 90 to 91% of the economy are financially disenfranchised. They are isolated from the financial services. And in doing so, we had to build this platform that enables everybody without having a bank account, just to go to any M-Pesa branch, start an account, get a SIM card for M-Pesa, and then you can transfer money to your kids if you work in town and they live in a village or in another town. You don't need to leave your work. Anyway, I'm not gonna just keep talking. I'm gonna play this interesting video, and you can do your own readings. Google it, M-Pesa, and you will find even M-Pesa anniversary after 10 years from now from that video. So this video explains what happened in 2007. I want you later on to do your own homework and explore the 10th anniversary of M-Pesa in 2017 until now, how this system dominated all financial institutions, including microfinance institutions, how banks even transfer money.
Only 4 million Kenyans have bank accounts, but 10 million people here use the M-Pesa money transfer service. This shop is one of 17,000 agents throughout the country.
Customers come and do M-Pesa transactions. They either deposit or they withdraw cash.
Customers transfer money electronically using their mobile phone, and the agent converts it into Kenya shillings. Safaricom launched M-Pesa just 3 years ago, and already half the adult population is using it, many to send money to family living in the countryside.
I don't have to travel from here to Muranga to take money to my parents. I can just send it from here. And within seconds, the cash is in their phones and they are going to withdraw it and enjoy themselves.
When I'm away and the workers need to purchase maybe a material or something like that, I do have to go where they are. I just send money to them in their phone. Then they will draw it wherever they are and work is done. So I find it very efficient.
Patrick showed us how he loads up electronic value on his phone.
So I give her my mobile phone number. Now I'm receiving a message from M-Pesa. Confirm Kenya shillings 100 cash. I have to sign that I've received that money in my phone. Now I can send this money where I want or pay a bill, electricity, water, or buy some items with it.
M-Pesa users say they value the service because it's convenient, cheap, and safe.
Initially I thought these are con men, but when it worked, I found it good. Since then, I've been using it.
Green M-Pesa shops are popping up everywhere, including here in Kibera, a slum of more than 1 million people in my hometown of Nairobi.
There are so many M-Pesa around here where I can withdraw the cash. It simply makes work easier for me.
Anytime you like to use it, everywhere you go, you will find M-Pesa.
A city within a city, Kibera has a fully operating economy. Poor people buy and sell small goods in busy toy markets. Millions of tiny cash transactions like this take place every day.
I use M-Pesa. I use it when I'm buying maize from the garden.
Before M-Pesa, small merchants like Mary sent money using informal bus and matatu companies. But these companies aren't licensed to transfer money, so it's risky. The cost and inconvenience of traveling to the city center meant that Mary was effectively excluded from banking services. But today, mobile money is bringing banking to Kibera, and M-Pesa is a gateway to financial inclusion. Innovations in mobile money are changing the face of banking in Kenya. The dream of financial inclusion is seeing the light of day, and my country is leading the way.
So, if we analyze such a system, and there is an interesting story even behind this project, when I was involved in Cairo University as a faculty member, I used to teach sort of digital business as well. But at that time, we had this smart student, somebody like you guys, mentioned. He said, "Okay, now we have something called buying a top-up card, so you can top up your own, airtime, so you can, make phone calls." At that time, we created a sort of, 10 pounds, 10 Egyptian pounds card to 30, 50, 100 cards. You can go to any grocery shop and you can buy these cards. But then there is a difference between the face value and the market value. So the market value, if it is 10 pounds, the face value, the real value itself would be around 8 pounds. So you pay 10 pounds, you get a value of 8 pounds phone calls. His idea was why we cannot exchange this. So what happened in the black market at that time, and especially between students, they used to exchange commodities, books, and other things and gifts with cards. So I can give you, for example, 5 cards, and each is 10 pounds value, so which means 50 Egyptian pounds. You can go and give this as a gift to your girlfriend, boyfriend, or a friend in general, and this person can replace it or exchange it from the grocery shop with real money. So he said, why we cannot have a sort of this exchange financial value with airtime value? So can we really transfer financial value as airtime value? In terms of informatics, because I'm an information system scholar, I thought this is really possible. Instead of having phone calls data, we can have financial data instead of processing data that says 10 minutes or 5 minutes and how many seconds of call period, how much money was transferred. And somebody in the other terminal can get, this. But the challenge was, for example, liquidity issues, business modeling, who take what. So the first thing I had to do this so-called socio-technical design, where first, how the data management, and you can see this foldering and filing system would work, and who is going to take what. So how much would be the net profit for the service provider? It was a good start to think how saturated is the market telecoms in Egypt and everywhere. I mean, if you ask yourself, guys, how many SIM cards you have in your pocket at the moment? If you are British, you might have 2. If you are from overseas, you might have 1 for, conducting international phone calls, 2, 3 SIM cards for having, internet services. You have a package, which means every one of us has more than 1 SIM card, which means the market is already saturated. The penetration is more than 100% for these mobile telecoms. So this idea of diversification, which I'm going to explain in next week, is another strategy where telecoms can rely on the infrastructure, this telecommunication towers, hardware, software, all informatics, customer service, all these things would work in a different industry. So they would move from telecommunication towards financial services. This is called diversification strategy. So would it work through interest-based model like any banking service? No, this wasn't the assumption. So our assumption at that time was to have a transaction-based service, which would comply with different, people with religious background. So people with religious background seem to reject this idea of interest rate based on the assumption that asking people to pay interest is benefiting from their needs for this money, especially if it is high interest rate. Business-wide, in terms of business, if you see how the Chinese market is giving around 0.05 interest rate, or sometimes 0 interest rate, encourage the people not to deposit their money in bank. Instead, they need to invest it in doing a small business, investing it in buying shares, cryptocurrency, or whatever. So developing a socio-technical design and the business model for this was quite a challenge, but then we decided to do it as transaction-based systems and an interest rate system. We had to do this idea of information analysis, information data flow, how we can, how the users upload money and download money. So we need 2, terminals. First, you go and as you saw in the video, when you watch this video, you go with your ID, you create an account, and then you hand over some cash to the retail agent. And this is a trusted retail agent who's been trained by M-Pesa. They take the money, and then somebody else will come and receive this money from another branch in another city, different location. But this person in his store need to have a liquid cash, so he or she can hand over the cash that you sent to your friend or your family or whoever is the receiver. This sort of mobile user agent network data flow in and out for cash in and cash out was another issue that we had to consider when we develop a system. So not just the socio-technical design and the business model, but the information analysis. Again, how to do this, which table would include which data? Are we linking this to their IDs, personal IDs? Are we linking amount of daily transactions? How files and record of retail agents would be processed and compromised in the network or the operator service? And if you do Google M-Pesa, this system was hosted by or developed by Vodafone Group, But Vodafone Group in Kenya is called, Safaricom. Similar to here, we have Asda, which is the American Walmart, the British Walmart. So it's a sort of political acceptance, political way of pushing names and brands to be accepted in the market. So later on, we had to think of what sort of mobile phone are we talking about? Affordable Nokia phones. Is it made in Africa, China, Philippines? What sort of phones? What sort of technical specifications for these phones? Do we really need smartphones? If this is the case, they would be already of poor or rich people, or at least middle class people. So we had to think about how each mobile device would be linked to the agent, printer and mobile phone, how this is connected to a PC. So the technical specification of the end user mobile phone and the technical specification of the network itself. So as you can see in the left side, you have customers who go to the point of sale. This is how we call it technically. The retail agents, trusted, trained people who would have PC, so they can print things. They can link the transaction to a printer. They have their own mobile phone, but their interface and data record is different than yours. They have overall a location record of all people who transferred money, and they do have access to your history of transferring money in a daily basis or whenever you go. There is a mobile wallet interface where electronic payment network that compromises different locations all together in the back-end service provider, the accounts and services and customer service, where the IT team have over-the-counter provision of data two ways. So what happens here in your side gets processed in the main source, in the main database, and then comes back to you and the retail agent. Definitely we had technical specification, technical challenges like delay in peak hours, similar to what you face sometimes in Blackboard. So early Monday morning you might see a delay in downloading or uploading videos, so things would delay. So we had this, and then this led to other, reputation risk. So if you don't get any confirmation that the money being transferred to your daughter or to your family, you come to the retail agent and accuse him or her of stealing the money. Different other challenges, and I always need to emphasize here in our module, digital business is good, but it's not free of risks or challenges. Okay guys, I wish you enjoyed this lecture. So this lecture had two sections. The first section we spoken about the evolution of the internet or the World Wide Web, 3 stages, and then in the mid-90s we started to have this rise of dot-coms and e-commerce, which is the transactional and financial applications of the World Wide Web. And then we had 3 stages of e-commerce evolution. And then later on we had the second section when I spoken about 2 real-life projects I've been involved in that shows you this impact of digital business in terms of crowd management and commercialized delivery for free trade zones, and another one for mobile money transfer in Kenya. Okay, all the references are here. The references are available here, and I wish once you cover this, take a break and see you in lecture 4.